My daughter gave me a stroke. I bankrupted her. That is the short version. The long version started the day she leaned over my hospital bed, looked at the monitor beeping next to me, and said in a calm voice, "Dad, you scared us all, but maybe it's better this way. Now we can finally put your affairs in order." I couldn't move my right side. Half my mouth didn't work. My speech was a mash of sounds even I couldn't understand. But my hearing was fine. My mind was fine. And from the way Elaine leaned closer to my pillow and thought I was out of it, I learned the truth about my only child. She didn't want to take care of me. She wanted to take everything from me. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The stroke itself hit 3 days earlier, right in her kitchen. I am 73 years old. I worked 46 years as an electrician, then as a small contractor. I paid off my house. I saved every extra dollar after my wife died. I missed vacations and new cars so my daughter never had to count coins at the supermarket. That afternoon, I was standing at her granite counter, holding the envelope with my latest bank statement. I thought I was going to show her that everything was fine, that she didn't need to worry about me living alone anymore. She was the one who asked for it. "Bring your papers," she'd said on the phone. "We should look at them together. I want to help you plan, Dad." I thought plan meant making sure I had enough for medication and food. For her, plan meant something very different. She opened the envelope without even asking, spread the pages on the counter, and ran her polished finger down the numbers. Her husband, Victor, sat at the table scrolling through his phone, a half-finished import beer sweating next to his elbow. "Well," she said, bright and cheerful, "that's better than I thought." "How much do you think it is?" I asked. "Enough that you shouldn't be living alone in that old house," she answered. "That neighborhood is unsafe. You forget things. It's time for something more organized." Victor snorted. "Or he could just sign the power of attorney we talked about, and we'll take care of everything. Professional supervision. Less risk of accidents." He didn't bother hiding the smile. "I manage fine," I said. "Your mother and I—" "Mom is gone," she cut me off. "And you almost burned the kitchen last week." I blinked. "What?" "You left the kettle on," she said. "That kettle shuts itself off," I answered. She glared at me, and for the first time I noticed something in her eyes I had never seen before. Annoyance, impatience, almost disgust. "Dad, I can't do this every day. I have a teenager, a job, a husband, a mortgage. I can't be on call for your episodes. I talked to the social worker at the clinic. If you give me power of attorney, we can sell that old house, move you to a care facility near us, and invest the rest properly. You'll be safe. We'll all be less stressed." Victor put down his phone. "It's for the best. You don't want to become a burden, do you?" The word hit me like a slap. Burden. I opened my mouth to answer, but I didn't get the chance. The last thing I remember is the blood pressure headache exploding behind my eyes, the room tilting, and Elaine's voice turning from sharp to panicked. "Dad? Dad! Victor, call an ambulance!" Then there was only the sound of my skull hitting the kitchen tiles and the distant ringing in my ears, like the world was walking away from me. When I woke up in the hospital, the stroke had already done its work. My tongue felt heavy. My right arm was a dead log beside me. My right leg obeyed me only when it wanted. The neurologist stood at the foot of the bed with a polite, tired face and explained that I was lucky. "Your speech will come back, at least partly," he said. "You will walk with therapy. It will take time. You must avoid stress." Avoid stress. My daughter was standing next to him, her face still stained with the remains of tears. She squeezed my left hand and looked so small and broken that my heart softened. For about 15 minutes. Then the doctor left, the nurse left, and Victor stepped in. He closed the door carefully. The moment the latch clicked, everything changed in the room. Elaine's shoulders relaxed. The soft, helpless daughter vanished. In her place was someone else. someone calculating. "Okay," she said, pulling a folder from her bag. "We don't have much time before the nurse comes back. Dad, I talked to the social worker. They explained everything. You can't live alone anymore. You know that, right?" I tried to say, "We'll see," but it came out as air and a broken word. She nodded as if I had agreed. "This is a power of attorney packet," she went on. "It just means I will make decisions for you. It's normal. Lots of families do this. It's safer. You know you trust me." She put a pen in my left hand. My fingers were clumsy. The letters crawled across the paper like they had forgotten how to form my name. Halfway through my last name, my hand jerked. The line went down and off the signature line. Victor clicked his tongue. "Looks like a child drew that," he said. "Will it even be valid?" "Doctor said his mind is clear," Elaine answered. "That's all that matters." The pen slipped from my fingers and rolled onto the sheet. I didn't understand everything right then, but I understood one thing clearly. My daughter was in a hurry to get control of my life. When they left, they kissed my forehead and smiled. "Rest, Dad. Don't worry about anything," she whispered. "We'll take care of everything." I lay there, listening to the monitor beep, watching the door, and thinking about the word burden. It kept ringing in my head like a church bell. I spent 4 weeks in rehab. They taught me how to walk again, how to talk again, how to pick up a cup of water without shaking it onto the floor. The staff were kind. The physical therapist was strict. She made me sweat and swear under my breath. But she kept saying, "You are stronger than you think." Every evening Elaine visited. Sometimes she brought my granddaughter Zoe, 14 years old, always with earbuds in and her eyes tired from staring at screens. Zoe hugged me every time, gently, carefully, as if I was made of glass. When her mother went to the cafeteria to get coffee, Zoe would sit on the edge of my bed and whisper, "Mom is looking at nursing homes on her phone," she told me once. "Some places are nice, Grandpa. They have gardens and activities." "And how many beds?" I asked, words slow but clear enough now. "4 to a room," she answered, her face changing. "1 bathroom for 12 people. She thinks you won't notice." I noticed. Another evening she leaned closer, looked around, and lowered her voice even more. "Grandpa," she said, "Mom and Victor moved things at your house. I heard her on the phone. She said, 'The appraiser came. We can put it on the market as soon as the paperwork clears.'" I felt my heart stumble. "My house?" I asked. "Yeah. She told Victor, he'll be safer in a facility, and it's better to sell while the market is high. We need the money now, not later." Not later. Not after I was gone. Now. The physical therapist was right. I was stronger than I thought. Strong enough to feel the anger push me up inside, warming my chest. It was that night, staring at the ceiling of the rehab ward, that I made my first real decision. If my daughter thought my stroke had finished me, she was wrong. That stroke didn't kill me, it woke me up. 2 weeks before they discharged me, my old friend Luis came to visit. We'd worked together back when we were both young men climbing roofs and crawling through attics with wires and tools. He retired early and opened a little print shop downtown. What most people didn't know was that he was also the best forger I had ever seen in my life. Back then, he did it as a stupid hobby, old concert tickets, fake backstage passes, nothing serious. We laughed about it over beers in our 30s. As old men, we mostly talked about grandkids and knees and cholesterol. "Look at you," he said, dropping into the chair by my bed. "You scared everyone." "Not everyone," I answered. He raised an eyebrow. "Elaine?" I told him everything. Slow, word by word, fighting my tongue and the fog in my body, but I told him. About the papers in the hospital, about the appraiser in my house, about the word burden. Luis listened without interrupting. His face grew still. When I finished, he leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" he asked. For a moment I said nothing. Then I said the sentence that changed the rest of my life. I'm going to play the game she started, but I'll finish it. Louise frowned. You could fight the power of attorney. You were half paralyzed. She pushed you. It can be challenged. There are lawyers for that. You could... No, I cut him off. No court, no police. I don't want judges and social workers deciding if I'm worthless. I won't sit in a hallway again while strangers discuss me like a broken chair. She wants to treat me like an object? Fine. I will think like someone who has nothing to lose. He studied me for a long time. You're serious, he said. I had a stroke, I answered. What else can they do to me? Take my blood pressure? He leaned back in his chair, rubbed his face, and sighed. You know everything I'd help with would not be legal, he said finally. I know, I answered, and I'm asking anyway. That was my second stroke, not in my brain this time. In my conscience. That was the moment I stopped thinking like a father and started thinking like a criminal. If you're still listening at this point, then you already know this story isn't about forgiveness. It's about what happens when you push an old man past his limit and expect him to die quietly. They discharged me at the end of the month. Elaine didn't ask me where I wanted to go. She arrived with a cheerful face and a plastic bag with my old clothes and said, "Good news, Dad. We found a wonderful place for you. Just until you're fully independent again, of course." The wonderful place was 40 minutes from the city, next to a highway. The building smelled of boiled cabbage and bleach. The nurse who met us at the door didn't even look at my face when she spoke. "Room 217, she said. "Shared. Dinner is at 6. Elaine kissed my cheek and said, "We'll visit. I promise. Victor has some big plans in motion. Once everything is settled, we'll see what else we can do." Big plans. On the drive over, I had seen a for sale sign on the lawn of my house. My name was still on that lawn in my mind. But I knew that in some office, on some computer, my house had already turned into property and asset. I settled into the thin bed, stared at the cracks on the ceiling, and did something that surprised even me. I smiled. Because what Elaine did not know was that during the last week in rehab, Luis and I had already started my plan. Elaine thought she was fast. She had no idea how fast a furious old man could move when his back was against the wall. Luis had brought me a small folder. Nothing fancy. Just a few sheets of paper, some names, and information he had gathered the old-fashioned way. Listening. He knew where Elaine worked. He knew where Victor worked. He knew the name of the small company they had started 2 years earlier. EV Future Homes. Some kind of smart renovation business where Victor sold people expensive gadgets and Elaine did the books. He knew something else, too. "They're drowning in debt," he said, tapping a printed spreadsheet. "Your daughter doesn't tell you about that part." I looked at the numbers. Business loans, personal lines of credit, credit cards, tax payments, pending. "Why are you smiling?" he asked me. "Because," I said slowly, "God just handed me a rope." I didn't tell him everything that day. Some of it I kept in my head, turning it around at night when I couldn't sleep, testing it from every side. I didn't want to hurt Zoe. She was guiltless in this. She was old enough to see, but still too young to be blamed. I wanted one thing: to make sure my daughter felt every ounce of fear she had tried to dump on me. I wanted her to sit where I had sat, helpless and dependent on someone's goodwill. But unlike me, she would have no goodwill to rely on. The care home had a public computer in the lounge. Most residents used it to look at photos of dogs and send emails to relatives who never answered. The staff assumed an old man with a limp and a cane couldn't do much damage in front of a screen. They were wrong. I still remembered how to use a mouse. I still remembered account numbers, passwords, and the logic of systems. I had been paying my bills online for years. I knew which bank my pension arrived at. I also knew which bank had financed Elaine's remodeling business. I didn't hack anything. I didn't need to. My daughter had written down most of her own keys. I remembered the time she had sat at my dining table logging into her accounting software on her laptop. She had read her password out loud by mistake, then laughed and said, "I use the same one for everything. It's easier that way." People underestimate what old men remember. I didn't go near her personal accounts. Not yet. That would be too obvious. Instead, I looked at the structure of their company. EV Future Homes had a main account. It had a credit line. It had suppliers waiting to be paid. It had clients waiting for refunds and finishing touches that were already delayed. Victor had taken out one big business loan the previous year. He had talked about it at dinner, bragging about interest rates and leverage, thinking I didn't understand the words after a life of running my own small firm. The loan had one detail they had never mentioned. Elaine was personally liable for it. Her name, not Victor's, was the guarantee. The bank had a rule. If the account was pushed into overdraft too far, or if a certain pattern of transfers appeared, they would freeze it and demand immediate payment of the entire loan. That's all I'm going to say about what I did on that public computer, because describing the rest in detail would be giving a manual for something no one should copy. Let's just say this. I moved numbers around using access I still had as a silent partner from when I had helped them start. I pushed the account into a shape the bank's algorithm did not like. I sent a few polite emails to the right departments from the right addresses using words I knew would wake people up. Then I waited. 2 weeks later, Elaine stormed into the care home like a thunderstorm in heels. She didn't even say hello. She stood over my chair, her face red, her hands shaking, and hissed, "What did you do?" The other residents turned their heads. The nurse looked up. I kept my face blank. "Dad," she said, lowering her voice but not her anger. "The bank froze the business account. They say there were irregular transfers from an old Access profile. Your profile. They say you triggered it. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said. "You have to call them," she went on. "Tell them it was a mistake, that you pressed something by accident, that you had a stroke and didn't understand. They want to see you. They say it's fraud if we don't resolve it. Do you know what that means?" "Yes," I said again. "Then why are you just sitting there?" she almost shouted. "We can lose everything. The business, the house, Zoe's school, everything." There it was. Not, "We can lose you, Dad. We can lose everything." I looked up at her and spoke slowly, choosing each word like a stone. "Now," I said, "you are the burden." Her mouth fell open. "You can't mean that," she whispered. "I am your daughter." "You were," I answered. "Before you signed me away for an appraisal and a bed in a room that smells like boiled cabbage." She straightened, pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and tried a different tone. "Dad, please," she said. "I was stressed. You scared me. I said some things. But we're family. We have to help each other. You need to come with me right now and fix this." I stood up slowly, leaning on my cane. The room was spinning a bit, but I had been practicing for this moment. "Did I scare you more than when you called the appraiser before I left rehab?" I asked. "More than when you told Victor you needed the money now, not when I died?" Her eyes widened. "Zoe shouldn't have told you that," she muttered. "On the contrary," I said. "It saved my life." She grabbed my arm. "Get your coat. We're going to the bank." I pulled my arm free. "No," I said. She stared at me as if I had grown another head. "Do you understand what you're saying?" she asked slowly. "If you don't help, they will come after me. Personally. We'll lose the house." "You mean my house," I corrected. "The one you put on the market with my power of attorney." Her face changed then. The fear turned into something harder. "You think anyone will believe you?" she asked. "You are in a care home. You had a stroke. I have the papers. I have the power of attorney. You are not in a position to threaten me." She was right about one thing. I couldn't threaten her. The time for threats was over. The time for consequences had started weeks ago. That same night after she left, I called Luis from the payphone in the hallway. "It started," I said. "I know," he answered. "I read the news. EV Future Homes just filed for emergency protection from creditors. And that wasn't even your biggest move." He was right. Freezing the account was just the first rope around her neck. The second part of my plan was darker. EV Future Homes had a second set of books. Victor kept them on his private laptop. He thought no one knew they existed. But people talk, and Luis had good ears. Suppliers complained about creative accounting. Workers complained about cash under the table. I didn't need to touch those dirty records. All I needed to do was make sure the right person saw them. Let me be clear. What I did next was not legal. It was not kind. It was not what a priest would recommend. It is also the main reason my daughter will never forgive me. Luis had taught me something years before. Paper can say whatever you want it to say, if you know what you're doing. And sometimes a USB stick can say even more. He had a client at the print shop, a mid-level inspector from the tax office who came in once a month to print posters for his wife's dance school. Luis struck up conversations, harmless at first. Weather, football, elections. Over time, little remarks about contractors who pay cash for everything, about small companies that think no one sees. One afternoon, an anonymous envelope appeared on that inspector's desk. Inside was a copied hard drive full of EV Future Homes numbers. Some were real. Some, let's say, had been encouraged to look worse than they were. The company already danced near the edge of the cliff. We just gave the wind a little help. Within a month, the tax office opened an investigation. Within 2 months, word had reached their suppliers. Within 3, the word fraud appeared next to my daughter's company name in whispers and emails. Remember that big business loan? The contract had a small, important line about honest reporting. When the bank smelled smoke, they assumed fire. They called the entire loan. They did not call Victor. They called Elaine. While all of this happened, I sat in the care home, did my exercises, ate my overcooked vegetables, and smiled politely at the television no one really watched. Elaine's visits became less frequent. At first she came twice a week, every time more strained, every time with a new story about delays, lawyers, bad luck. Then once a week, then every 2. She never mentioned the house again. One rainy Thursday she arrived alone, without makeup, with dark circles under her eyes and her phone silent in her hand. She sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor. "They're going to take everything," she said. "They say there's nothing they can do. The bank, the tax people, everyone. We owe more than we have. They froze our accounts. The clients are suing. Some of the documents—" She swallowed and looked up at me, eyes shining with panic. "Some of the documents show I signed things I don't remember signing." My hand tightened on the bed rail. "Do you remember," I asked quietly, "putting a pen in my hand in the hospital?" She froze. You know I did that to protect you," she said weakly. "No," I answered. "You did it to protect yourself. You were already thinking about my house and my money, not my health. Now the world is thinking about your signatures. That's all." Tears spilled over her lashes. "I could go to prison," she whispered. "Do you understand that? They say it's possible. Victor says he'll support me, but he's already gone half the day talking to lawyers. I know him. He'll leave if it gets too ugly. He's already talking about bankruptcy." "You mean you are bankrupt," I corrected. "He just uses different words." She covered her face with her hands and sobbed for a long time. I watched her quietly. I would be lying if I said there was no satisfaction in that moment. But there was also pain. I remembered the way she used to run to me at the playground, the way she had cried on my shoulder when her mother died. Finally, she wiped her face, took a breath, and looked at me again. "You did this," she said. "Didn't you?" "Yes," I said. "Why?" she whispered. "I'm your daughter. You're supposed to protect me." "I did protect you," I answered. "For 40 years. I paid your tuitions. I bought you your first car. I helped with your first apartment. I helped you start this business. I had a stroke in your kitchen from the stress you piled on my shoulders. And while I was lying half paralyzed, you tried to sell the only home I had left so you could invest in a man who laughs at me at the table." I shook my head slowly. "At some point," I said, "protection becomes permission. I was not willing to keep paying for your cruelty. So I stopped." She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You stopped by ruining me," she said. "No," I answered. "You ruined yourself. I just refused to be your safety net." She stared at me for a long time. "Is this revenge?" she asked finally. I thought about the word. "I call it balance," I said. She stood up on unsteady legs. "You know they'll come after you too," she said. "The bank, the tax office, lawyers. They'll go through everything." "I know," I answered. "I'm an old man in a care home with a walking stick and half a working body. Let them come. What will they do? Take away my cardboard meatloaf? Freeze my pension?" She opened her mouth, closed it again, then turned and walked out. That was the last time she visited me for months. In that time, everything I had predicted happened. EV Future Homes closed its doors. Suppliers sued. Clients sued. The bank took their cars. The tax office took their savings. Victor moved out temporarily to stay with a friend and never really moved back. Elaine filed for personal bankruptcy. Zoe came to see me every Sunday now. The care home staff let her in even outside visiting hours. They liked her. She brought cookies and asked the nurses about their families. She told me how things were going in the small rented apartment on the ugly side of town where she now lived with her mother. "Mom sleeps a lot," she said. "Sometimes she sits at the table and stares at the wall. Sometimes she shouts about betrayal and ungrateful people. Then she cries. She doesn't talk about you." "Do you hate me?" I asked. Zoe looked at me steadily. "I heard everything she said to you in that hospital," she answered. "I heard everything she said about your house. I saw the papers where she wrote, 'He'll forget anyway.'" She looked older than 14 in that moment. "I don't hate you, Grandpa," she said. "I hate what money did to all of us. But you didn't start it." I swallowed past the lump in my throat. "Do you still have a room in that new place?" I asked. She smiled for the first time that day. "A corner," she said, "with a curtain." "Well," I said, "that is still more than I have here." Her smile faded. "Can't you come home?" she asked. She didn't mean my old house. She meant any home. Something that wasn't a shared room with a man who snored like a chainsaw. "Soon," I answered. "Soon we'll change that." You see, while the storm hit my daughter, I hadn't just been sitting and watching. A month after the investigation started, I called a lawyer. Not to sue anyone, to sign something. Before the stroke, I had a will. Elaine was the only heir. After my wife died, I had put everything in her name. It seemed natural. Who else would I leave things to? After the stroke, lying in bed and listening to my daughter talk about putting my affairs in order, I realized something simple. Being an only child did not give her the right to be the only person in my life. There were others. There was Zoe. There were charities I had always wanted to help. There were people at church who visited me when no one else had time. There was the young nurse in rehab who had cried when I left because "you remind me of my grandfather." So I rewrote my will. The old house, once sold by the bank after the investigation cleared my power of attorney, would not go to Elaine. Legally, the sale still needed my signature because of some old technicality in how the deed was written. She had never read that part, too focused on the numbers in the bank statement. I waited. The bank finally sent a representative to the care home, a polite woman with a neat folder and a tired smile. "There's a buyer," she said. "We need your signature to finalize the sale. The funds will go toward paying back the debts your daughter assumed under the power of attorney." "Will there be anything left?" I asked. "A little," she said. "Not much." "Enough for me to move out of here?" I asked. She hesitated. "Enough for a small place, yes," she answered. "But your daughter?" "My daughter is an adult," I said. "She can rent like everyone else." I signed. The house was sold. The debts swallowed most of the money. The rest, what little there was, went into a new account, in my name only, with Zoe as a secondary beneficiary. Elaine received a letter informing her that the bank had exhausted all the assets in reach. Her bankruptcy was finalized. The next Sunday, Zoe came into the care home with a different light in her eyes. "Mom got the letter," she said. "She threw a plate at the wall. She screamed that you ruined her, that you betrayed her. Then she sat on the floor and said, 'He'll die soon anyway, it's not fair. It was supposed to go the other way.'" I listened quietly. "Do you feel sorry for her?" I asked. Zoe thought for a moment. "I feel sorry for the person she used to be," she said, "before money made her like this." 3 weeks later, I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment near the park. Nothing fancy. Old building, creaky stairs. But it had a window facing trees, and it didn't smell like boiled cabbage. I bought a second-hand armchair. I hung my wife's photo on the wall. I put Zoe's drawings on the fridge. On the first evening there, Zoe sat on the rug with a slice of pizza, watching an old movie with me. "Grandpa?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you think Mom will ever forgive you?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds. "That depends," I said. "On what?" "On whether she ever admits to herself why this happened," I answered. "If she thinks she's only a victim, she'll hate me forever. If she sees what she did, maybe one day she'll understand. Forgiveness is her choice. Living with what she did is mine." Zoe nodded slowly. "And you?" I asked. "Do you forgive me?" She leaned against my arm. "I'm not ready to answer that yet," she said honestly. "But I still want to spend Sundays with you." That was enough for me. The story could end there. Old man loses his house. Daughter loses everything. Granddaughter sits between them trying to grow up in the shadow of their mistakes. But life decided to add one last chapter. 6 months after her bankruptcy, Elaine knocked on my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She had lost weight. Her hair was pulled back in a plain ponytail. No designer coat. Just a simple jacket and tired eyes. I let her in. She stood in my small living room, looked at the armchair, the photo, the tiny kitchen, and laughed once, without joy. "So this is what's left," she said. "Yes," I answered. "This is what's left after your plans." She turned to me. "I came to tell you something," she said. "Not to ask anything, just to say it." I waited. "You won," she said quietly. "I have nothing, no business, no house, no husband. I work at a supermarket now. Zoe and I live in a small rental. I count coins like you did when we were young, remember?" "Yes," I said. "I hated you for months," she continued. "I dreamed of you falling down the stairs. I wished you had died from that stroke so I wouldn't have to see your face every time I looked in the mirror." She swallowed hard. "But then," she said, "Zoe had a panic attack at school. The counselor called me in. They asked what had happened at home. She cried and said, 'My mom and my grandpa destroyed each other over money.'" Elaine's voice broke. "She didn't say my grandpa ruined my mom," she continued. "She said they destroyed each other." Silence filled the room. "I realize," she said, "that I threw the first stone. You just learned to throw back. I'm not excusing what you did. It was cruel. It was illegal. It broke me. But I understand now why you did it. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't forgive you, she said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand. For Zoe's sake. And for mine. She turned to go. Elaine, I said. She stopped. Yes? You asked if I think I won, I said. I didn't. We all lost something that can't be paid back. She nodded without turning around. I know, she whispered. But at least now we know the cost. She left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sank into my armchair, looked at my wife's photo, and asked the empty room the same question that still follows me every night. Did I go too far? My daughter gave me a stroke. I bankrupted her. I won't pretend I am proud of every step I took. I also won't pretend I regret all of it. She forced me into a corner, and I chose a way out that most men my age would be too afraid to take. So now I am asking you, the person who stayed with me through this whole story, do you think I did the right thing, or did I go too far? Write in the comments how you would have done it in my place, what you think I should have done, and what you would say to a daughter like mine.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.